I am so thrilled to be sitting here today with Emily Golus. And it's kind of a funny story. I was at a Rise Up Con conference, which is a whole nother blog post here or podcast or whatever you want to call it. And I met her. She was there with her books. And so I went out on a limb here and said, "Hey, Emily, would you like to be on my podcast?" So here she is today. Emily, tell a little bit about yourself, and then we'll jump into your book.
Sure. Well, I'm Emily Golus. I have been working on fantasy for over 20 years, but my first book came out 7 years ago. So all of my books, all three of them so far, take place in the world of Vindor, which is a place that I have been sort of world building for 20 years. And so, so fantasy is obviously something that I really enjoy writing. I really enjoy reading. I love science fiction as well. I worked as a marketer for, doing blog posts and stuff like that for over a decade as my daytime job. And now I stay home with my two kids who are almost 6 and almost 4. So I have my hands full. But fantasy, just having books published and being able to spend my time writing and talking with other writers and networking and doing things like this with the writing community is just kind of a dream come true. So
Sweet. And if you guys are not, if you're not on the YouTube watching this, and I got to say, when Emily says 20 years, she looks like she's about 25. So
yeah, I'm in my 40s. So, but
low 40s,
low 40s, but still, I like it though, because, I feel like at this point, I'm like, oh, I know what's going on. I know what I'm doing. I don't have to try to be cool anymore because nobody cares. So
I remember my mom saying that when she hit 40, that was probably where she felt her best in her life, is when she hit 40.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I kind of remembered that when I hit 40, it's a good time.
Yeah. I love it. It's great. So.
And then you have 2 little ones to keep you really.
I do. I do. High energy little boys, but so fun, so creative. My almost 6-year-old David, he is already coming up like stories and lore. He has this race car character that pops up, and I'm like, okay. And he's always making up names. And my younger son he has a villain named Inu right now. He's always talking about Inu and all the stuff that Inu has done. And I'm like, you guys are probably going to write stories when you grow up, aren't you?
Comes natural. And both of my children are into the writing kind of stuff too. So it does, I think it just comes naturally. The DNA is in there.
Yeah.
So when I met Emily, she had a beautiful setup with her books, and her book, Crack the Stone, her major one that she was showing at the time. And Emily, you got to talk about this. I was with my daughter who loves fantasy, and I admitted to Emily, I'm not a big fantasy sci-fi person, and I'm probably in the minority with that, but my daughter just gravitates to all fantasy sci-fi. She loves the stuff, and I think she could have spent the entire day talking to you, Emily, because she just but Emily not only does the fantasy that she loves, but she combined it with the classical Les Mis. And so that my daughter also is a freak about all those types of old musicals, Broadway type things. So talk about how you came up with that and how all that played out, Emily, to put those two things together.
Well, actually, it was not my idea. The book was my idea, but I was approached by another author, Alison Thibault, who was putting together a multi-author series. And the way that works is several different authors, 9 in our case, all come together, and you write books that are similar in theme or similar in some way. In our case, they're all retellings of classics. And so she said, hey, we're doing this thing where we're all going to write books. They're all going to be fantasy adventure retellings of classics. And would you like to join? And it was so funny. I can remember where I was when I got the text. I was standing in my backyard, watching the kids run around. And I was just like, Les Mis, with goblins. And that was my first idea. I actually like tried to go think of other ideas. I'm like, maybe I should do something different. And I was like, no, no, this is it. The goblins comes from my first two books have a goblin character in it, and that's very beloved. And he actually makes a cameo in this book. And so I was already interested in like, but where does he come from? What are his people like? Because he's a loner kind of in my other two books. And I'm like, but what is it like there? So I was already thinking, what is it like to live underground and caves and this very kind of draconian world that they come from? And then I was like, well, what's my favorite classical novel? And it's Les Misérables, because it's such a beautiful redemption story. And then the two, just this image of a goblin escaping from prison is where I started. So that's where the initial idea came from. Was it was presented as, would you like to do it? And I was like, yes, I will do that.
That's amazing. It's mind blowing to me to even think in that realm. I mean, I'm happy if I can just figure out my contemporary world. But what are some of the other classics that are used in this series, just out of curiosity?
Oh, it's sort of all over the board. The first one in the series that Allison did is Beowulf. So like we're talking about really old, and she absolutely loves that story. It's a poem, epic poem, and she did it like from the monster's point of view. And then some of the other ones are, we have someone who did Moby Dick with dragons. So they're hunting dragons instead of whales, which I really enjoyed that one. We have Hamlet, but it's like with Vikings and like Viking villages and warfare and things like that. Yeah. And then let's see, we've got one that's Oliver Twist, but in like a almost steampunk kind of world. So
Yeah.
just all different types of fantasy. Wow. Some of them are like more epic, like the Hamlet and the Beowulf are more on the epic side of fantasy, whereas some of the other ones are more like sort of more quirky adventures. They all have like an epic kind of streak through them, but you can tell all the different personalities of the different authors. There's, again, some of them are steampunk or like pirate kind of influenced. Some of them are, mine has like African influence in it, some places and stuff like that. So all over the board, lots of diversity.
Creative, so creative. It blows my mind. I remember Beowulf was the 7th grade reading requirement when I was in middle school. So I remember that going, oh my word. So to turn that into a whole story is pretty incredible.
Yeah, yeah.
And this is not your first book. So talk a little bit, and just so you guys that are listening know, I am going to put the links for Emily's book, of course, in the show notes, and maybe I'll do the back cover blurb so you can read it for yourself. And we'll talk about this in a few minutes about her blog tour that she will be taking part in at the same time that this is actually going to be published. But tell us a little bit about your previous books, because weren't they YA?
Yeah. So my first two books are really, I'm aiming for middle school readers because my main characters are 13-ish. And it sort of deals with some of the themes that middle schoolers, struggle with, like identity, where do I belong? Do I matter? All of those things, which turns out also older teenagers and adults also struggle with those things. So it's resonated beyond just middle school, younger YA. So I've got readers of all ages. My first book is about a girl named Megan who creates this world in her head, the world of Vindor, where she always imagines herself as the heroine. Everyone comes to her like, oh, Selena, come save us. And she's always like, yes, I will use my superior intellect and my charm to, outwit the dragons and all of that. And then she has just invented this world in her head. And then she gets stuck inside of it for real. It is
now she's not in fantasy land, but
she's in real world. She's a normal teenager, imagines this world, and then gets stuck inside of it.
Wow.
But when she's inside of it, the rules is she no longer like has control over the story like she did when she was imagining it. And of course, everyone thinks she's her alter ego, and they're like, come save us. And she's like, guys, I'm like 13. Like, what do you expect from me? But so then there's this shadow that's attacking, and she's like, I did not put that in there. I would never put something so freaky like that in my world. And so she has to team up with these friends and figure out like how to save her world, even though she does not have the skills that she's purported to have.
Well, your mind blows mine. I cannot even imagine where
So
it all comes from. You have a really active imagination.
I do. I do. I have to be careful about like not watching scary things because I can't turn my imagination off.
Well,
So like
that could be a problem.
yeah, so but that's the way that it starts, and that's what the world of Vindor is. It's actually what's called a paracosm, which is a world that one person creates for their own private like enjoyment, just to enjoy it. And so the universe it exists in is called Paracosmia. The second book in the series takes place 5 years later. It's about Megan's brother. So Megan is back in the real world. She's sort of 19. She's going to college, but her younger brother gets stuck in the world of Vindor. And one of the fantasy characters gets stuck on Megan's college campus. And so it's a split story of her trying to like hide the fact that like she can't explain where this friend came from, and she's trying to get her brother back, but she doesn't know how to open the portal between the worlds. And meanwhile, her brother, Arden, is in this world he knows nothing about. And he's like, what do you mean my sister saved the world? Like, she's just this normal preppy girl. What are you talking about? And then he's on this adventure as Vindor is kind of disappearing around him. And so that's the big mystery. What's going on? What are these mists of Paracosmia that are sweeping through the world of Vindor? And he's trying to save the world as well.
Kind of like Back to the Future, what Michael J. Fox is while he's playing the
yeah, it kind of is. It kind of is. And kind of like the never-ending story, you know, with the nothing coming through and erasing things. So I love to pull from like older fantasy. Like if it was written in the 70s or 80s, I'm like, I really like that. So
very, it makes me want to crack open your books and jump into fantasy. I might just have to do that because it's just very creative, and my mind does not work that way. I should not be a writer. God called me to this when I was like 12 years old, and it definitely takes his act and his work and the Holy Spirit to even pull me through a book, because I don't know that this was really what I was supposed to do. But so you have Crack the Stone along with these other books that are coming out. What is your next? Are you working on something now?
I am working on something now. So two projects. I have a short story that's coming out in an anthology that will release in October, and it is about merfolk. So everything that I write now is within the world of Vindor, which, as you recall, was created by a 13-year-old girl, supposedly. So now all the other stories take place within this world. And I describe it kind of like Neverland, where you've got like groups of people that are way too close to each other. It doesn't make sense. Like you've got this African civilization right next to this like feudal Japanese, a society, which are right next to the merfolk, which are right next to these Anglo-Saxons. So it's kind of this, I try to make the cultures themselves as real as possible, but the geography is kind of whimsical. And so there are a lot of merfolk especially in Vindor. They especially come out in the book 2, 3 different types of merfolk. So my short story deals with these 2 types of merfolk, and I'm working on a full-length novel that's sort of that short story is kind of a prequel to a full-length novel about merfolk. So it's still in the early drafting stages, but that's my next project.
So are you able then to use what you have started with your other books in the Vindor, and you have that already worldview created? So you're not having to recreate every single book a new worldview. Is that true?
That's true. And what I like to do is have my different cultures all have slightly different like emphases. Like one culture might value individual freedom and individual expression higher, and another culture might value like playing along well with your community and all working together. And those 2 values are kind of in conflict. And then my favorite thing to do is put those 2 people together in a room, if I can.
They can fight it out, right?
Yeah. So for the merfolk novel, it's really fun because I'm having to world build, like, how would physics underwater, how would your cities be if you were underwater? How would sound work underwater? So I'm,
How would you breathe?
how would you breathe? Yeah, I'm trying to work through all of that, all of those questions. So, and
So
then with,
is merfolk off like mermaids?
yeah, mermaids, because mermaids is a female, mermaid is
Right.
a female. So it's like trying to be like the gender neutral is merfolk,
Well,
um,
see, this isn't my,
mermen. Yeah,
this is my fantasy idiocy coming
yeah,
through. I,
yeah. Well, no, it's just a technical thing. And I try to say merfolk instead of mermaids, but usually I say I'm writing about mermaids, even though there are males in the
well,
world.
yeah, I was thinking, it's funny because I was thinking about this morning, how I'm not into fantasy. And what came to mind while I was preparing to sit down with you is that when my daughter was 3, Little Mermaid came out, and it was the first
Mhm.
movie I ever took her to. And
Oh,
that,
wow.
I loved that. I loved
Mhm,
that whole story. And of course,
mhm,
anyway, it choked me up. I always get choked up when you have
mhm,
this daughter with the father going, "I love you,
mhm.
daddy," and then I'm in tears.
Aw.
So it's just all that, but that came to mind, and I had
Mhm.
no idea that you're writing your story with merfolk. So I think that's
Yeah,
kind of cool how that happened. So
yeah.
tell us about the Celebrate Lit blog tour. So
Mhm,
I'm familiar with it myself because every one of my books is with Celebrate Lit thus
mhm.
far. And so I am on every one of those blog tours. My books have been on there. So, but tell the people that may not know about the blog tour, explain what that is.
So, it's sort of a concentrated effort to have one book be featured on multiple blogs. So, I think I don't know what the final count is right now.
Usually
Obviously, when
about
this is public,
usually about 14 to 17.
probably, I think it is. I have 9 interviews. So I'll have,
Wow.
9 blog posts where I will be answering questions. But mostly it's just different people on this tour. The bloggers, they read the book, they give their honest opinion about the book, and then they share it with their readers, which is super cool because they kind of know who their readers are, and they can help get the book to the right readers. Because not every book appeals to every person, and it's sometimes hard as an author to find out where these people are. How do I reach them? And so it's a really cool opportunity to have a lot of people sort of tell their friends essentially about your book, while giving some information about it. The other cool thing is there's a giveaway, and so anybody can enter this giveaway. And I'm giving away obviously a copy of my book. I'm giving away some Vindor swag, like some stickers that I have that are different places in my world. I'm giving away an Amazon gift card, and I'm giving away a pendant. It's a arrowhead pendant, and if you see the cover of my book, it has this sort of obsidian. Um, it's actually like a spearhead more, but I got a
Mhm.
little obsidian arrowhead that has gold around it, and it's a
Oh,
pendant. So I'm giving that away too as part of the giveaway because it's just, I don't know,
did
it's
you
just a really
create the
cool thing.
stickers? Did you make your stickers?
I did. Yeah, I designed the stickers. They're based on travel posters, of, like those vintage travel posters for like
Huh.
national parks. I designed different, like, I have 2 cities so far that I've designed stickers for. And then hopefully as I release more books, I'll make more, each book will have a city sticker that goes along with it. So,
How creative is
um,
that? I love
yeah,
that. And
so,
the other thing that, and you said this, but kind of glossed over it pretty quickly, was that the people that are reading these books and reviewing them, they're putting on Amazon and BookBub and
mhm,
Goodreads.
yes,
And I don't think readers have any idea how critical it is to get reviews. And
yes,
it's
yes.
a hard thing. And a lot of people want to read the book, but unless they really hate it, they don't bother to review it.
Mhm.
So, as authors, it's critical because that's where we get our readership from. People see the
Yeah,
reviews. You got a book out and it's been out for a year and you've got 5 reviews. They're like,
yeah,
you need to have
yeah.
a.
It's kind of social proof. Like, when you go to get a book, you want to know that other people have enjoyed it. Or if they didn't like it, why they didn't like it. Like, maybe they'll say, this wasn't for me because, XYZ. It was too it had too much romance, and I don't like romance, you know, and I might look at that and be like, well, I actually like books without a lot of romance. So that can be very helpful. So if you like a book, if you enjoy a book, please just leave a review. It can be really short. It can be like, I like this because you know, I like fantasy, or I'm not really into goblins, so this wasn't for me. You know, that sort of thing can be very helpful.
Right. It is definitely very helpful.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious, with two little kids running around, how do you find time to write? What does your writing day look like for you?
Well, so it was really hard to begin with. I really took a break from writing because when my second son was born and my other son was 2, I was holding the baby all day long. Like I had to feed that baby 8 hours a day. So I could not
No
write.
hands.
I had no hands. I literally tried to set up my keyboard, like hold the baby and like set up a keyboard and like type like one finger like chicken pecking, and I was like, this is not worth this is just not going to work. So but now that they're getting older, like David is starting kindergarten, he's gone to preschool. Jonathan, you know, he does a little preschool program, which is great for them because they get to meet other kids. They get to practice their social skills. It's a Christian, it's a church run program. So they're learning all this like Bible information and learning their letters, which I'm like, thank you for teaching them their letters. I respect people who can homeschool, but I'm like, this is beyond me, how to teach letters to children. I just don't think I can do it. Like, what sound does the C make? Well, it depends, kid. Like, so I love.
Emily, you start with cat. You
I
do.
know, I know. I like.
Simple, but
I
yeah.
know. I have a degree in English, and like I know. It's sort of like how you know the sausage is made, and I'm like, listen, our spelling system makes no sense, and here are all the reasons why our spelling system is the way it is. And so I'm like, I can't teach a kid what the letter C means. I don't know what it means. But a kindergarten teacher comes in and they're like, they just simplify. Anyway, so
Well, they do learn how to do that.
they
I mean,
learn. Yeah, I know. So I have utmost respect for educators,
when I was
especially of young
becoming a
children.
teacher, I had to pass, just when I was getting my degree, a new test came up, and you had to be able to pass a test called a RICO, teaching kids how to read. You had to be able, and I was teaching middle school, so it's like,
Yeah.
really? If you don't know how to read by middle school, we're in, but you still
Yeah.
have to do it. So
Mm.
there's a lot of little parts to all that come together when you're actually teaching. But
Yeah.
you know,
But for but like as the kids are in school, I take that time to do writing and marketing. I take my husband and I have what we call studio nights where we both work on our own projects. And so I have a couple evenings where I work on things. And then this summer, I've been getting up aggressively early to get things done because I like to get up early. So it's like it's good for me because it kind of like I feel like I get a good start on my day and I get a little time to do writing. So
aggressively, because we get up at
uh,
4 o'clock most.
okay, then not that aggressive. Before I had kids, I would get up at 5. Now it's more like I get up at 6, which during the summer is fine because the kids kind of sleep in and we don't have to be anywhere. So
That helps. Yeah. Well, of course, we're like falling asleep by 8. So
yeah,
we're
no.
not much good at, we have to take a walk, or,
Mhm.
take the dog out, or find a
Mhm.
project just to stay awake till 9. That's that
Yeah,
sad.
yeah.
But I love more, especially this summer. I love mornings. We get
Oh,
out there with
I love it.
our back patio, and
Mhm.
before it's light, it's still dark out. We do
Mm.
Bible study out there, and the birds are singing before it's, that there's a line that faith is a bird that sings before the dawn, knowing that
Aw.
day is coming. And it's, I think it was Langston Hughes who wrote that, but
Oh, it's
just
beautiful.
being able to hear. And then we got this app. Just if anybody, this is the coolest app. I'm telling everybody about this app.
Uh-huh.
It's called Merlin Bird ID, and it's through
Mm.
Cornell University, and it's free. And you put your area in, and you just hit sound, and it will pick up the birds and tell you what the bird is. It'll show you a picture
Oh.
of it, and when you click on it, it'll tell you all about the bird. And then if that's your bird, you hit, this is my bird. It'll locate it. Well, Cornell University then uses that
Oh.
with their, what is it? I don't can't remember the name.
Yeah.
Their bird studies.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's the coolest thing because everybody I know now, I'm telling it, and we all have our little bird apps because it's just incredible to find out
Mm-hmm.
what these birds are in your area.
That's so cool. I think my in-laws have that and they've used that.
It's really
And we went to the North Carolina Arboretum, which is like a big, beautiful garden. And I saw somebody like holding that up to one of the trees. I'm like, I know what that is. So that's so cool. I love
yeah,
that.
pretty cool to be able to identify the birds in your area. Of course,
Mhm,
our state bird is the mockingbird. So it
mhm.
has a hard time because it's trying to
It's
identify each of
all
the
the different,
first time it figures it out. Okay, that's a mockingbird. So
because it's
pretty funny.
copying all the other birds. That's so
Yeah.
great.
So and it does it pretty well too. The
Good. Yeah.
well, mockingbirds actually do mock. Pretty
Yeah.
incredible. So so you're writing. You got books coming out. You're on the blog tour, and that link
Mhm,
I will put on here as well.
mhm,
That blog
mhm,
tour is going to be coming. You'll be on it while this is being published, so people can jump
mhm.
on. They can.
Yeah.
I love the idea of your giveaway. So
Mhm,
the nice thing is, Celebrate Lit does these blog tours ongoing. You can um, follow these blog tours. It's pretty cool. If you go to
mhm,
Celebrate Lit Publishing, you can follow all these different books are on it. They have books
mhm.
going all the time. And
Yeah.
every one of them has gifts. Every one of them you can sign up for a free giveaway.
Mhm.
So that's pretty cool to have too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and even though, Emily, I will not be on your blog tour this time, I will share your blog
Oh,
tour
thank you.
across
Thank
media
you.
that week because I am super excited about this and what
Mhm.
you're doing with your fantasy, and you make me want to read fantasy. So about that.
Well, I
But
try to I so one of the things with my fantasy is I'm in a critique group and I've been in the same critique group for 19 years.
wow.
And there are all different genres there. And so my goal as I've been writing and bringing this in for all these years is like if I can get, Melinda to like this. Melinda doesn't like fantasy, let's say. Um, and if I can get Melinda to get invested. So I've been writing it for non-fantasy readers for all these years. So I'm like, if Nancy doesn't get it, then I will rewrite it and not just be like, well, it's just fantasy. I'm like, no, I'm going to make it so Nancy gets invested. So I try to write my fantasy.
And I think for me, part of the challenge of really enjoying fantasy is not being able to actually see
Mhm.
your worldview, to actually be able to grab it and understand. I mean, the Bible's hard enough,
Mhm.
Old
Yes. Yeah.
Testament, trying to read the Bible
Mhm.
and get all that Old Testament stuff down.
Mhm.
That's hard
Mhm.
enough. And when and so you're doing fantasy, and if you can't picture that worldview, it makes it very difficult to
Yeah.
get invested
Yeah.
in the story.
Right. And I try to write like as try to make it as accessible as possible. Like I want it to be a robust culture. I want it to be something that is unique and that the character filters everything through, but I'm also trying to show very quickly to the reader this is basically how this works, or how this character even works. Because Crack the Stone starts off mostly with my main character by herself. She is stuck in a cave and it's completely dark. And I'm trying to show, not only some of her biology because she's a goblin and she's got like bioluminescence, and try to show how some of that works, where she can make her own light through her fingertips. But then also kind of like here's how vengeful she is and how terrified she is and how aggressive she is because of how scared she is, trying to put all that in while moving the action forward. um, you know how is she going to get out of this? She's stuck. She's literally, I researched so much about caves and like all the terrible ways you can get stuck in a cave.
Have you ever got yourself stuck in a cave?
Absolutely not. I am not going in there. Um, I did get to go to like I've gone to a cavern this past June. I'm going to blog about it at some point. Like I like the caverns where you can take a tour and you like follow the little,
Right.
path. I
Right.
love that. But you cannot pay me to be like, I wonder where that hole goes and like try to shove myself into there. Because that's what like cave explorers will do. And I'm like, that is a special type of brave because I panic if I have to go under my kid's bed to like get his favorite stuffed animal, and I'm like under my kid's bed, and I'm like, it's too crowded. Like I'm not getting in a cave.
So
Like
you have a phobia of small spaces, claustrophobia.
I do, and I tried to use that as I was writing
You get
Crack the
under your kid's
Stone.
bed while you were trying to write
No,
that?
I did not. I just like imagined, because I would read all these things about how tight these spaces are. And one of the things, so in Les Mis, the original, Jean Valjean, he has this, his super ability, his special ability is he's super strong. Like that's one of the things, he can lift things that no one else can. Like he can lift a cart off of this man that's fallen on this man. And that's how Javert knows it's him. They're like, I only know one guy who can lift things that strong. So for my book, because again, it's a retelling of Les Mis, my spin was not that Valshara, the Jean Valjean character, is super strong. It's that she's super small and she can get into places that no one else can.
Oh, okay.
So, and that comes up in the story several times. She can fit places no one else can because goblins are a small stature, and also she's insane. Like she's just like, okay, well, if my head can fit through there, I'll make the rest of my body fit. And
Yeah.
so I guess
Yeah.
kind of like a cat or something,
Yeah.
where she's like, well, there must be enough space if I can twist my head this way and get it in, we're good to go. But I did sort of feed into my own claustrophobia, and I'm like, how do I make this more exciting? I know, I'll make it more terrifying.
Otherwise, how do you express the emotion? You know, when I first started writing, I felt like I had not lived enough life to adequately express emotion. It was going through a really dark period of my life.
Mm,
What it
mm.
allowed me to use in order to dig into those emotions. And, you know, people, you have somebody who's angry, you have somebody who's, you know, who can be really nasty. Well, there's always something in brokenness in the background of that. It's not their personality as much as there's a brokenness.
Yes.
When you talk about, you know, all these different emotions that she's feeling, the desperation or the whatever she's feeling,
Mhm.
she's vengeful, she's scared, you know, it all comes from a place of fear. You know,
Mhm, mhm.
that, you know what they used to say, if you're in an argument with your husband, it's generally not what you're actually arguing about.
Mhm,
Usually
mhm.
there's something else in the background that just
Yeah,
causes the
yeah.
argument. So
Mhm, mhm.
it's just interesting. I see, my degree was in psychology. So
Oh, that's so cool.
it's interesting to get into the psychology of why people are the way they are.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm going to share, like I said, I'll share all of your links,
Mhm,
and
mhm.
for other people to maybe see some of these other books as well. You'll give me the links for those, or I'm so
Yes.
it will be on your website, and then you
Mhm.
have a newsletter people can subscribe to.
I do. It's on my website, which is emilygolisbooks.com.
I'll put the link in the show notes.
Yeah. And then you can sign up for my newsletter. And my newsletter is like, it's not one of those chatty ones. It's like if I have a sale or if I have a new book coming out, you'll get an email from me. Otherwise, you probably won't hear too much from me every once in a while if there's like something really interesting that happens, but it's not quarterly or anything like that. So don't be surprised if it just pops up in your email one day.
Well, that's amazing, Emily. It's been such a pleasure to
Mhm.
talk to you. I'm so glad I ran into you at that
Yes,
Rise
it
Up
was so
Con.
wonderful.
Anybody wants to know what Rise Up Con is, email me. I'll tell you all about it. It's pretty cool. It's a
Yeah.
cultural change of what we need to be doing in this world. So
So
thank you so much, Emily. I wish you the best on your books, and I will be checking in on your blog tour and sharing that. So
thank you so much for having me on. I had a great time.
it's been a
Yeah.
joy. Bye.